The voice of sovereign Cath Varas filled every speaker on every human ship, station, and colony at the same moment. There was no warning, there was no introduction, there was just the voice, deep, slow, and completely sure of itself. You have 30 cycles to surrender. Your colonies will become breath territory. Your military will be dissolved. Your people will serve under breath governance. This is not a negotiation. This is a schedule. The transmission ended. On the Galactic Conclave Assembly Station, 300 diplomatic representatives from 40 species sat in complete silence. Some of them had heard that voice before. They knew what came after it. 17 species had received that voice, and 17 species no longer existed as free peoples. Commander Cath Varas sat at the Terran table. She was a small woman with short gray hair and so steady brown eyes. She did not look alarmed. She did not look afraid. She looked like someone who had just been handed a piece of paper with the wrong answer written on it. Her aide, a young man named Owen Clark, leaned close. "Commander, should I prepare a response draft?" Alara did not look at him. She was still watching the empty space where the transmission had played. "Tell them we decline," she said. Owen blinked. Just that? Just that. The ref ambassador across the hall, a tall, scaled creature with 4 eyes and a chest like a stone wall, turned slowly toward the Terran table. He had expected tears, he had expected pleading, or at least a request for more time. What he saw instead was a woman already reaching for her communication device, already moving to the next task, as though the most powerful empire in the known galaxy had just told her the weather forecast, and she had found it mildly inconvenient. He did not understand humans yet. The rest of the galaxy watched. Most species present assumed it would be over quickly. The Breath Dominion controlled 42 star systems. They had a fleet that could dark a sky. Their soldiers stood 2.5 meters tall and had been trained for war since birth. Humanity had 12 colony worlds, a mid-sized fleet, and about 400 years of recorded space travel. The math was not in humanity's favor, but math was not the only thing in play. Cath Varas left the station within the hour. She gave no interviews, she held no press event. She boarded her shuttle, opened a secure channel to Earth, and said one sentence before the channel was encrypted. "Activate Iron Shepherd." The response came back in less than 10 seconds. "Confirmed, Iron Shepherd is active." Back on Earth, in a command room 3 levels underground in the city of Geneva, Admiral Leon Farrow set down his coffee and looked at the wall of screens in front of him. Maps, fleet positions, supply routes deep inside Reth territory, intelligence files that had been building for 15 years quietly and carefully without a single public announcement. He was 61 years old. He had spent the last decade and a half preparing for a war he had hoped would never come. He was not happy that it had come, but he was ready. He turned to the room of officers behind him and spoke quietly. "Everyone knows their assignment. No speeches. Get to work." They got to work. Across the Terran Union, things began to move. Ships listed as inactive and maintenance logs were suddenly fully crewed. Supply depots that had been recorded as offline in public records turned out to be very much online. Soldiers who had completed classified training programs in the last 3 years received new orders and packed their equipment without telling their families where they were going. None of this was visible from the outside. That was the point. On the Conclave Station, the Ref ambassador filed a report back to his God King. He described the human response as arrogant and foolish. He predicted that when the first Breath fleet arrived at the edge of Terran space, the humans would change their answer quickly. He was partially right. The humans did change their answer. They made it shorter. The Reth crossed the border 12 days later, fully expecting to find a line of human ships waiting to negotiate. What they found instead was empty space. No fleet, no station, no signal, just silence. The Reth fleet commander sent a scan report back to his superiors. No, nothing. The humans had not even come out to meet them. He assumed this was fear. He moved deeper into Terran space. It was not fear. It was patience. Back in Geneva, Leon Farrow watched the Wrath fleet's movement on the screen and said nothing for a long moment. Beside him stood a younger officer named Grace Dunn, who had written her doctoral thesis on Breth military strategy and had spent the last 6 years making sure Iron Shepherd accounted for every part of it. "They are moving faster than the projected timeline," she said. "Yes," Leon said. "Does that change anything?" He looked at the screens, 40 Wrath warships moving in a confident formation, heading toward the colony world of New Carthage. "Tell Dara Osai to be ready 3 days early," he said. Grace was already reaching for her comm unit. On a troop transport somewhere in the dark between stars, Staff Sergeant Dara Osai received a single message. It had no greeting and no explanation. It said, "3 days early, you know what to do." Dara read it once, then he folded it, put it in his pocket, and went to tell his unit. They did not ask questions. They had trained for this. They knew what was coming. They just did not know yet how deep it would go. The Wrath fleet arrived at New Carthage expecting resistance that would last maybe 3 days. The colony had a population of 600,000. It had a small orbital defense grid that the Breth disabled in under an hour. Their ground transports landed in the open fields north of the main city, and their soldiers marched toward the settlement with the calm confidence of people who had done this before. The first street was quiet. The second street was quiet. By the third street, the Wrath unit commander began to feel uneasy. There were no people running. No one was visible at windows. The buildings looked empty, but the doors were all closed. The commander ordered a thermal scan. The results came back almost immediately. The buildings were not empty. Every structure in the city had people inside it, hundreds of people. They were not hiding, they were waiting. The first device went off under the road at 600 hours. It was not large. It did not need to be. It flipped 2 armored Wrath carriers and blocked the road entirely. Within 40 seconds, every entrance to that street was sealed. Vehicles pushed across intersections by remotely operated machines. Debris dropped from rooftops with careful timing, and the Breth unit found itself in a box. Then the doors opened. New Carthage had not evacuated because its people had chosen to stay and fight. Civilians who had completed civil defense training, former soldiers, young people who had grown up hearing about Iron Shepherd in whispers and had spent the last 3 years quietly learning to act on it. They were not soldiers in uniform. They were farmers and teachers and engineers who had decided that if the Breth were coming to their home, the Wrath were going to earn every single meter of it. Dara Osai was not on New Carthage on that first day. He was watching from a tactical feed on his transport, but he watched every hour of what followed, and he did not look away. The Wrath fleet had expected New Carthage to fall in 3 days. It took 3 weeks, and the Wrath never fully held it. In space, the situation was equally confusing for the Wrath commanders. The Terran fleet did not form a battle line. It did not gather at a strategic point and defend it. Instead, small, fast groups of Terran ships appeared without warning at the edge of Wrath supply convoys, hit them hard, and vanished before escort ships could respond. The Wrath lost 17 supply vessels in the first 4 days, then a fuel depot near the border relay, then a communications array at the outer edge of the Dominion's patrol range. The Wrath fleet commanders had no name for this kind of fighting. In their entire history of conquest, the species they had faced had always tried to defend something, a planet, a station, a fleet formation. The humans were not defending anything. They were everywhere and nowhere at once, and every time the Wrath moved to chase one group of ships, another appeared somewhere else. A Wrath fleet captain named Cath sent a private message to the God King's War Council. In it, he wrote something that none of the other commanders had wanted to say out loud. He wrote, "They are not afraid of us. They are not trying to survive this. They are trying to make this painful enough that we leave. I do not think we have enough ships to make them stop." The message was not well received. One of the Terran frigate captains, a man named Felix Ward, had taken his ship on a curved course around the back of the Wrath main fleet formation. The Wrath did not detect it until the ship was already accelerating directly toward one of their largest warships. The frigate struck the Wrath dreadnought on the port side just below the main engine block.
The explosion was visible from 2 other Wraith ships. Felix Ward survived. His ship was destroyed, but he and 11 crew members reached an escape capsule. Before the hatch sealed, he opened a broad transmission and said in a voice so calm it was almost casual, "New Carthage is still ours." That 4 words spread through every human ship, station, and colony within the hour. Back at Wraith High Command, Sovereign Cath Varas received the battle reports and felt something he had not experienced in over a century. Not quite fear, something close to it, a sense that the ground beneath his certainty had shifted without his permission. He made a decision that he believed would end it. He ordered the bombardment of Hesperus Rest. Hesperus Rest was not a military colony. It had no meaningful defense grid. It had a university, 3 hospitals, a farming network that fed